on a few things today. We're going to do first a quick round of introductions, and then we're going to have a few updates from ISWP. You're going to hear from Alex and Arne. Some of you may or may not have met him on our last meeting. And we're also going to have our presenter for this meeting, Erik Kondo, which we very much appreciate your presentation today. And then we're going to go through some group updates. So before I let Alex and Arne take over, I just want to mention that our next meeting is going to be on December 11th, 2024. And if you haven't received the meeting yet, I'll make sure to send it to you after this meeting. Okay? Thank you, and I'll let Alex now jump over. Actually, I am lying. We're going to do our introductions first. Okay? So if you don't mind, Alex, can you start with that part, please?
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. And welcome, everyone. I'm Alex Kamadu. I am the Executive Director of the International Society of Wheelchair Professionals. I've been in the role now for about 2 years. I've met some of you in person, but most of you on these calls. So yeah, really happy to see all of you today and looking forward to the dialogue. Thanks, Stephanie. Maybe if I can call the next person and we can do that as we go along. So, Cara, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kara Kaplan with Permobile. I'm in the role of Director of Regulatory Science, and I'm also heavily active in the ISO, SEN, and RESNA standards development. Nice to see all of you.
Thank you, Kara.
Trisha. Can I call Trisha?
Hello, Patricia Carr, University of Pittsburgh, involved in RESNA, the Rehab Assistive Technology Society North America Standards Development for Assistive Technology. Also part of the University of Pittsburgh Tissue Integrity Management Laboratory, where we apply a lot of the standards to evaluate seat cushions. Thanks. And I'm supposed to pick somebody, huh? I'm going to go in the alphabetical list. So Aldo.
Hi, good morning. I'm Aldo Alessi. I'm from Mexico. I'm in the National Rehabilitation Institute. I'm a researcher in Rehabilitation Engineering and Motion Analysis Laboratory, and my main purpose is to do prescription and research on wheelchairs and cushions. So sorry, because I can't see names, but I'm gonna pick Erik, please.
Hi, my name's Erik Kondo. I don't really have an official title. I'm been a wheelchair user from spinal cord injury since 1984, and I have a deep interest in wheelchairs, wheelchair functionality, and making them, and also trying to help people in LMICs. So, and yeah, I can't see names here either, so I'm going to say, if you haven't been called, somebody speak up.
I can speak up. This is Don Schoendorfer. I'm the president and founder of Free Wheelchair Mission. We're trying to get as many people in wheelchairs as possible. Tomorrow is our big fundraiser, so we're hoping to bring in quite a few. I think 23,000 is what we're hoping to get tomorrow. 22,000 wheelchairs. And I don't know who to pick here. How about Keith? Is Keith? He works with me. I'm not sure he's online. How about Evan? I'm not sure who has already spoken. So next volunteer should go. How's that?
Let's say Dean is going to be our volunteer today.
Hi everyone, I'm Dean. I am with ISWP, a Class 1 medical device manufacturer based in Cape Town. I'm part of the design team. I'm also part of the testing laboratory at ISWP. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just joined right now, so I don't know who else has been on.
That's okay. I can invite Erik if you want to go next.
I suppose you mean me because I'm the other Erik that hasn't
Yes.
spoken yet. So Erik Wunderlich, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, supporting our global wheelchair program, and also kind of on the ISWP board. So.
Hello,
Thank you.
my name's Jim Watson from Cranfield Impact Centre in the UK. So we perform dynamic wheelchair crash tests and also static tests as well.
I'll go next. It's Shona from Shona Group in Cape Town. As Dean said, we design, we manufacture a full range of assistive technology, mobility devices, and posture support equipment for children with disabilities living in more rural and remote areas. I'm also a wheelchair user in that my daughter's been driving a power chair for the past 42 years and is a fellow.
Thank you, Shana. And I know you're driving, so I'm going to invite Laura. We may be having some issues hearing you, Laura. But we have Laura Ramirez from Intech. So if her microphone comes up, we'll be happy to hear her introduction. But Nicole, can we get a quick intro from you, please? And thank you for joining us.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Nicole Orton. I'm with the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute. We also crash test wheelchairs and tie-down products and things like that, as well as do volunteer studies. And we are heavily involved in the RESNA standards related to wheelchairs transportation safety.
Thank you, Nicole. And last but not least, Arne.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. I'm Arne Compernolle. I am also a board member from ISWP. I'm an occupational therapist by background, and I'm currently also the Vice President, Scientific and Medical Affairs at Permobil.
Thank you, Arne. We also got a message from Laura. She is from Santo Domingo, and she works in the materials testing labs of Intech. Okay. So thank you, everyone, for attending our meeting today. I'm going to pass it along for Alex and Arne now.
Super. Thank you, Stephanie. And welcome again to everyone. I'm just going to pull up a presentation. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
We can see with your presenter's notes.
Oh. And sorry, 1 second. Oh. Do you see it now? No?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, awesome. Yes, so welcome everyone. We've been really busy at ISWP over the past few months. It's been a very busy year with the start of the year with the AGM in April. We had the election of the new board, And a lot of work has been done in terms of the diligence and governance around ISWP as we've become our own standalone not-for-profit in 2023. We're working on a very big piece of work with the new board, and I'm glad that there are quite a few of the current board members on this call as well, because they can help to, elaborate a little bit more if I've missed on any of the topics. But we are working quite strategically and quite significantly now on developing the new strategy for ISWP for the next 3 years, for 2025 going up to 2028. And, most of you or all of you would have been involved in other strategic planning exercises in your own organizations or within entities that you are involved in or committees. And you will understand that it is quite a comprehensive and robust process that needs to be undertaken in order to develop a strategy for an organization of this size. So just to give you a bit of this is just the framework or an overview of how we've gone about developing the strategy. So we started off with a survey in June, but prior to that, we went through a process to identify some consultants or a consulting firm to help us with this process. And we have 2 consultants by the name of Eloise and Claire McKelvey, who are helping us with this process as we move forward. So they designed a survey with our help. It went out to all our members, which are just over 11,000 members, and many of you would have seen that survey and partook in contributing some insights to that survey. We then presented the insights report at one of our board meetings in July time. And then we've been working with our executive committee to provide input into the objectives, the key results, and some of the activities that will help us to achieve the objectives for the next 3 years. And finally, we're going to be working with the board. We just had our board meeting last week, and we presented these objectives and key results to them. So they've been given a bit of time to review the objectives and to provide input. And then we'll go back to the executive committee to formalize the key results, which are basically the indicator framework, which will help us to identify what the key measures of success are. And then we'll be working with all the various committees, including this one, to identify all the activities, because we need to do a bit of a costing and budgeting around those various activities. And finally, we'll be looking at what we're calling a strategy on a page around October, November time. So we're moving away from these lengthy documents. We obviously have a very detailed and comprehensive strategy, but we're moving towards having an infographic that you can easily explain the direction of travel for ISWP and what the key measures of success would look like at a glance. And finally, to close the loop, we will go back to our members around November, early December time and present to them not only the process, but also the insights that they provided us and the process that was followed, and eventually the strategy on a page. So just to give you the high-level objectives that are still draft at the moment, we've come up with 5 objectives following that very elaborate process that we developed. And these are the 5 objectives that you see in front of you. The first one is to increase access to training and certification of wheelchair providers globally. This is something that our Certification and Recognition Committee has been tasked with. And the idea around this is that they are responsible for increasing access to training and the certification that ISWP has developed, but also to do something around course recognition. So to also look at how we might recognize the training and the certification of courses that are available to wheelchair providers. The second one is really important to us, and one that the insights strongly recommended, is about ensuring that ISWP ensures the perspective or the lived experience of wheelchair users and their families is reflected in our work. Very, very important for us to, and we'll be hearing a little bit more from Erik a bit later today. And so in all of our committees, we want to ensure that people who use the services and who utilize wheelchairs are able to provide input into the work that we do. The third one, which this committee will be responsible for, is contributing to appropriate wheelchair production and supply. And there are a lot of metrics and a lot of activities that fall under this. For example, looking at a standard around the reuse of equipment, also looking at a toolkit for governments around production of wheelchair, be it at national or local level or local assembly. These are some of the activities that would fall under this committee. The fourth one is to advocate for countries to include appropriate wheelchair provision in national policies. Again, we are looking at whole system change and whole system transformation. So ISWP is going to start to do a lot more work on that in national level, working with countries around sustainable change to integrating wheelchair provision into their policies. And finally, looking at health system strengthening about improving the capability to provide appropriate wheelchair services. And this is also looking at how to strengthen procurement departments, how to strengthen governments, and to build capacity and capability through the development of resources to help strengthen the whole health system across the board. So these are just draft objectives. Like I say, we've just presented this to the board in the last week, and we've also been working with the executive committee to unpack these objectives to look at the results or the metrics of success for each of these objectives. In terms of some of the updates that we've been working on, we made a submission to the ILO in terms of the classification of the job roles, particularly around the technician role or repair role for wheelchair provision. And we revised that based on the provision or submissions that everybody provided us to submit to the ILO. We're now looking at making some sort of arrangement in terms of ISWP having a representation on the standards or the working groups at ISO level. We've also now been accepted as a full member with GATO, which is the association body for all the assistive technology organizations. And we're very delighted to have gained full membership now that we have a fully elected board. In terms of global giving recipients, we've also been accepted as a member of global giving recipients, which is very much a US donor consolidated effort to raise funds through donations. And we've developed a web page for global giving, and we will be launching that as part of the work that the Advocacy and Resource Mobilization Committee has been doing. We had an alignment meeting with the committee chairs on August 29th, so just last month. And this was a very important meeting where ISWP has been going through a lot of change. We've got 7 committees at the moment, and we've got some new committee chairs, and we've got a new board, and we have these new objectives. And we thought it was very important to bring the chairs together to look at how we might align all the terms of reference for each of these committees back to the vision and mission of ISWP. So it was a very successful meeting, and all the committee chairs are going to be, our ambition is to have one of the board directors take up roles of the chairs so that they report directly to the board, and we're working towards achieving this. And we'll tell you a little bit more when we introduce Arne officially as the transitioning chair for this committee. We're also planning a global wheelchair stakeholder event with the WHO, ISPO, and AT-Scale. This will take place in May next year, and this will be a side event at the GATE Summit that takes place and hosted by the WHO. And the purpose of this meeting is to it's partly a little bit of advocacy, but it is also to celebrate ISWP's 10 years, which we will be celebrating next year. But coupled with that, we're working with the colleagues at ISPO and the WHO to see what are the priorities for the wheelchair sector, and to also come up with a really effective way to scale up wheelchair provision globally. We're also going to be looking at some case studies for low, middle, and high income countries in terms of where wheelchair provision has been integrated really well into the health system. And that's a piece of work that will be done. So we're in the process of designing this global wheelchair stakeholder event. We're also very actively involved in the World Rehabilitation Alliance subcommittee around workforce development for rehab professionals. And ISWP is co-chairing one of the committees working on the workforce committee. We're also working quite a lot or quite heavily with ISPO around a technical track that's specifically dedicated to wheelchair provision. We've designed a survey that's gone out to the members attending ISPO to identify what sort of training needs members who are attending would like, ranging from basic wheelchair provision or basic wheelchair assessment and provision up to repairs and maintenance. And finally, we're working on our big UNOPS submission, which basically, for those who don't know, ISWP is predominantly funded through a large grant from UNOPS, which is administered by UNOPS, but it's actually from USAID. And that grant runs up until July 2025. But we're now in that grant making process, and we're having to develop a concept note and to also identify all the activities that ISWP will be doing when this grant ends for the next 3 years. And that was why it was so important for us to undertake this strategic planning session, why it's so important for us to really concretize our objectives and the key results, because all that information gets included in the submission to UNOPS for sign-off by USAID. We've also been doing some supporting some training and some certification efforts globally. These pictures you see in front of you, this was a basic and intermediate training on wheelchair assessment and provision in India in collaboration with the Bangalore Baptist Hospital. And we had 14 participants that took part in this training. And these participants will also go on to complete the certification process that we have. Coupled with that, we've also been doing the intermediate certification of 18 participants. So for those who don't know, in order to undertake the intermediate certification, you have to do an online knowledge test followed by a skills test, which involves meeting with one of the clinicians and running through a case study. And you have to achieve both these elements or components of the certification process in order to get certified at the intermediate level. You also have to do the basic test as well and be certified in order to move up to the intermediate skills level. We're doing a lot of work with this committee around refining and finessing the whole process, because we've identified that there are some issues with the certification process, and we're looking at how we might refine and harmonize this moving forward. This slide just shows you that we've had 192 new members that joined ISWP. So we launched the new website with the membership categories earlier in the year. And we're delighted to say that the numbers are slowly growing. And cumulatively, we have 11,540 members on our database at the moment. And we'd be looking to also increase this by 25% for this year or the coming year, because this is one of the key measures of success for the certification committee. Our certifications, as you can see from this, cumulatively, we only have 240 certified providers that have gone through the ISWP basic, intermediate, and trainer certification processes, which is not a high number. But like I mentioned before, we are looking at some of the barriers to why these numbers are so low and looking at how we can improve these, particularly in low and middle income countries. But I'm delighted to say that we did have 47 members get certified in the last quarter. So it's very positive. We're working on some initiatives in the Ukraine, particularly with the WHO around training and certification of clinicians in that country. And obviously, because of the situation with the conflict that's ongoing, they have a large scale ongoing scalable training and certification program that we're looking to mirror in other countries and write this up as a case study. So a lot of work's going on in the membership and the certification arena, but we will keep you posted about those updates. So that brings me to the end of the ISWP updates, and I'm not sure, Stephanie, if you would like me to introduce Arne, or if you can do that. So I think we introduced at the last meeting the idea of ISWP, this committee, particularly changing in the form. We currently operate in terms of the evolution, we had the product standards board and we had the testing centers, and both these committees joined when ISWP reconfigured. And so Stephanie has been doing an amazing job at organizing and coordinating this committee. And, you know, we've been really successful in terms of growing the membership. Sometimes we've had, you know, up to 30 members who've joined calls, sometimes even more. But what we've been finding is that we need to do some relook at this committee. And the ambition is to make this committee a smaller committee. And I'm not going to steal Arne's thunder here, but at this point, I would like to introduce Arne Compernolle from Permobil, who introduced himself earlier. But Arne has kindly taken up the role of chair from 2025, and he will be transitioning into this role. We do have one more committee meeting in December that Stephanie will be chairing and coordinating. But I'm going to hand over to Arne to introduce himself. Many of you do know him from his past experience, but he is one of the new directors on the ISWP board. And we've been having some dialogue about how we might change and shift this committee so that we can actually move into delivering some of those objectives that I outlined before. So I'm going to hand over to Arne. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And just for the sake of today, I have prepared just 2 slides. Not basically really to know what to talk about, but more to keep me on track. So allow me to share my screen and tell me if you can see my screen in presenter mode.
Yeah.
So first of all,
yes.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, a short introduction. As I previously told, I am a licensed occupational therapist and assistive technology professional. So I'm licensed in Belgium, and I have also a certification in business administration. In my professional career, the first 14 years, I've been working on a daily basis with wheelchair users as a provider of the technology. In Belgium, it's a separate license because you're, differently from other countries, you're the in-between person between the funding system, the prescriber, and the user. So basically, it's really at that intersection where the provider operates. So I've been doing that for almost 15 years before I moved over to the next step in my career and joined Permobil as a clinical educator, which then changed basically 2 years later, where I took the lead for the clinical team in the EMEA region. And then in 2020, in the middle of COVID, I ended up also with the assignment of being a forming committee member in the International Society of Wheelchair Professionals. The forming committee then transitioned basically into the board of directors, and then I stepped temporarily out, whilst now I basically joined the board of directors earlier this year. And as from 2024, and that's a mistake on my slide, apologies. So from the start from this year, I took basically, I transitioned in a new role in Permobil and moved over into the group organization where I am heading up the scientific and medical affairs team. So that's about my education and work. I have added a few pictures because it's always nice when you introduce yourself that you also talk a little bit around the person behind the education and work. So I'm also a father of 2 teenage daughters. Basically, I share the house with 3 women, and that explains also why I have built my office in the back of my garden. I call it my man cave. My wife calls it Plan B. But I'm also a partner to Julie. We live in Belgium. You see it on the map for the ones that basically not really knowing where it is. It's a small country squeezed between the Netherlands and France. And I live right in the middle of our spectacular long coastline of 40 miles in length. Which is, by the way, known for very nice beaches, very nice sunsets. So it's quite an enjoyable place to stay. And then obviously with the family, I really, besides work, I enjoy most of the time to spend with my family, and where we also then engage quite frequently in outdoor activities. So that's about me. So then to come back basically to the purpose of today, and that's the Product Quality and Reliability Committee. In my discussions I had previously with Alex and Stephanie, the ambition is really to bridge the gap with the strategic ambitions of the ISWP. The current Product Quality and Reliability Committee is, and I've seen the invitation list. Basically, there's more than 90 people on the list. So hearing that, it's very good to hear that 30 to 35 people are engaging during the meetings, but it's a very broad group to actually get things done. So it's not our ambition to stop basically the gathering. I see an opportunity to convert the current setup into a platform for knowledge exchange, where we also see sharing expertise and best practice, and especially also networking and interaction, because that's something very important, especially to get access to different types of skill sets, different types of persons with a different type of background. The ambition is to continue twice a year. And we will also consult the participants to be able to drive an agenda and to select topics. On the other hand, there's also a new standards committee, and between brackets, I said to be named. I think you agree on this, Alex, where we will try to identify a core group with maximum 8 to 10 participants selected for their various skill sets. But on the other hand, if you think that you could be a great fit within this new committee, please feel free to reach out to Stephanie, Alex, and me, so we can take your candidacy also in consideration. So we will we need a set of people to be selected with profiles and the expertise that we need basically to deliver on the strategic objectives of the ISWP. That means also that we will align the agenda and the topics with the 3-year strategic plan of the society. The focus areas will start basically, or let's say the taking of the endeavor with this new committee. The focus area will be that we define a mission statement and also the objectives. And with the objectives, we will be better able to define also the deliverables that we're expecting, and especially again in respect of that of the strategic objectives. Then we will basically continue also with, first of all, an assessment of the relevant existing standards. And that will enable us then also to do a gap analysis and to define the standards or the initiatives to contribute to the quality of wheelchair production and also to the supply and provision. And that is obviously in respect or with a special focus on low and middle resource countries. So again, if you think that you could be a good fit for this committee, please feel free to reach out to us. We have a sort of a small hit list that we have composed of people that we also identify of people having the right competences. But again, we want to provide also the opportunities to the persons participating in the previous meeting to move themselves forward as a candidate. Alex, back to you.
Thank you, Arne. So we've spoken quite a lot. We've given you quite a bit of information about the background. And again, as this committee evolves, like Arne says, it's our ambition is not to stop this knowledge sharing platform that we've created. This will continue, but it will be one of the activities that falls under the committee to coordinate and to organize. But the committee itself will start to do a little bit more of the work, setting up working groups that are actually getting involved in some of that work. So these meetings that we have now become more purposeful and intentional. So I think maybe we can pause now and take any questions or queries, because it is a change. And I'm sure that many of you have some questions that you'd like to ask.
I don't have a question per se, but I have a comment. I'm excited to see how this group is gonna evolve. And I want to welcome Arne to the group, of course, like you've been part of their previous meeting. But the group that we have here is really supportive, and I really look forward to what's going to happen next. So I'm very excited for the next steps in this.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'd also
sorry.
like to echo that, Alex and Arno, and thank Stephanie for having really created a forum where people really want to meet. And I think that's been one of the highlights of all the groups that I'm involved in. So I just want to thank you all, and so I really feel that what is being built here is relevant and really important for the future of wheelchair users globally.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shauna. And yes, it's really, when I started with ISWP, this committee just blew me away, the passion, first of all, and the commitment of all the members. And I think, it's just going to get even better in terms of the evolution. And yeah, we're all looking forward to the next steps. And again, Stephanie, you're still with us, and obviously you are one of the people on the hit list for for the committee as we move forward. But the reason why this has been so successful has partly been to your leadership and through your coordination and all the hard work you've put in. So I just want to say thank you. But obviously we still have time. This is something that we are transitioning to, but I think we thought it is really important at this point to start to orientate the committee members to the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so we don't have any questions, and if you guys are both okay with this, I would like to welcome our presenter, Erik. So Erik, if you want to take over, we would love to hear from you.
Okay, great. My name is Erik Kondo. I've been a wheelchair user since 1984 from a spinal cord injury from a motorcycle accident. So that's close to 40 years. So it's given me a lot of time to see how wheelchairs have developed over the years. I'm also networked with quite a few people with spinal cord injury, both in the United States where I live, and also in a number of low resource countries such as Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and Pakistan. So, and it's through my involvement with these other people that I've really become interested in trying to get more wheelchairs to people who need them. So I'm coming at this from the angle of being a wheelchair user, which I think that there needs to be more voices from wheelchair users in general in this whole process. One of the things I'm going to use an analogy, maybe it's going to work or not, but we've all heard the expression, "Why did the chicken cross the road?" So when we think of that, we think one chicken and one road. All right. So I'm going to say, this is the world of wheelchairs. It's like, why did the wheelchair user cross the road? We forget there's a tremendous amount of wheelchair users. There's a lot of roads and there's a lot of different reasons. So when we talk about wheelchair users, usually everyone's got, whatever wheelchair user group in mind. And they forget about all the other groups out there that are different. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. There's a tremendous amount of variability within the group of wheelchair users. So I'm talking about myself. I represent a certain category of wheelchair user that doesn't necessarily fit with other wheelchair users. And I recognize that. But I'm going to speak for people who are similar to myself. So one of the things I've been doing in the recently is really trying to promote what I call DIY, do-it-yourself wheelchair movement. I think it's important to get power to wheelchair users so that they can start getting interested and involved in this whole wheelchair process. Because right now, I feel that wheelchair users think that they have no control of this process, and this is a problem. So I'm trying to get them more involved. And in doing so part of me doing this is been creating wooden wheelchairs. Now, I don't think wooden wheelchairs are in any respect ideal, but they're a gateway. It's actually relatively easy to construct a wooden wheelchair, and that's a gateway to creating metal wheelchairs and other wheelchairs. It's also a gateway to understanding, because ultimately, when you build something, you understand how it works. And it's my opinion that a lot of wheelchair users and pretty much most people in this industry really don't understand how manual wheelchairs actually work at a high level. So I just put together, like literally a couple hours ago, a little montage. It's only 1 minute of me doing stuff in my chairs and some stress tests. I'm just going to play it so we just have something to talk about. And I'm going to, now I'm not great with Microsoft here, so I'm going to share my screen and I hope I can get sound too. So just bear with me while I do this.
When you click share, you're going to see like a little slider at top that says share sound.
All right, so I click share, also share audio tab. All right, I want to get to my, sorry about this, people. Maybe Alex, you can say something interesting while I'm searching here.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Yeah. Do we have an answer to that question? That's what I'd like to know.
I'm always trying to curate a whole lot of funny things to say in between when we have these moments, and I'm terrible at it. So if anybody else has some analogy, they would.
I'm trying to get to my videos. And I'm playing something, but we're not catching it, right?
No.
No.
No. All right, hang on. Just.
And in the meantime, I can maybe even share in the extension of your comment, Alex, is that why did the chicken cross the road even has a Wikipedia page.
All right, I'm sorry here. I'm trying to now. I started this thing and now I gotta kill it. And I'm not sure how to do that.
Do you see the share button at the top right?
Yeah, I do. I got the share here. Share screen or tab, select tab to share, but it's not giving me, I need to get to my computer. I need to get to my drive.
Do you have the window where your video might be open? What
Okay,
you
I
can
do
do is have
now.
the video ready to play and
I do
then just share
now.
it.
Yep, I got it ready to play. So, sorry, not trying to be an incompetent here.
Not
Don't
at all.
worry.
This happens to all of us,
Every
trust me.
time, every meeting.
All right. I think I got the downloads here, right? So I could be here. All right. Can we see this now?
Yes,
Yeah, we can
do.
see your screen.
All right. Okay, so here we go.
So just in case, we're still seeing your downloads.
No.
Yep. So maybe you need to reshare again, and instead of saying the window, you may want to say screen.
All right. Stop sharing. You share again. And go to entire screen.
Yeah, just make sure that you enable the include sound.
Also share system sound. Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. Now do we have it?
I can see your mouse. Yes. And it looks like we're
All
going to
right.
get the video.
Okay, lots of excitement here. All right. Stop sharing. Okay. Sorry. So those are wooden chairs that I made cheaply, and they all work. Nothing fancy about them. And I'm also doing stuff that a lot of wheelchair users can't do. And I think this is another thing when you talk about standards, where I think that most people are thinking about standards only in terms of okay, I'm going to test this wheelchair, I'm going to test this caster, and it's good for 200,000 cycles. I think standards also should be performance standards, and that I think is missing. So I'm going to consider myself a regular, ordinary guy, 59 years old, been in the chair for a long time. If I'm just a regular guy, like, why aren't other people doing this too? And that is I think that's part of the problem is we have a lack of standard of performance for wheelchairs. And we think that a wheelchair is just a wheelchair. So, put someone in it, they can push around their house or whatever, and that's all they can do. And people are like satisfied with that. And I'm not. And I think that in general, our standards of what you should be able to do in a manual wheelchair, if you have full upper body function, should be a lot higher. And I think it's important for us to recognize that and push people to get there. So that's kind of one of the messages that I'm trying to get across. And also, I am, and I've been contacted by a lot of wheelchair users who are like, oh, I'm not happy with my wheelchair. Like, how can I make one? You know, and the other part of being able to make a wheelchair is really just getting access to certain basic components. And recently I've been looking at sourcing them from China, and you can really get a lot of cheap parts. And when I say cheap, I should say inexpensive, because they don't necessarily break. And also, another point I like to make is, if you made your wheelchair, you can fix it. It doesn't matter if you break it, you fix it. I can't tell you how many people I know with modern, expensive wheelchairs who have a problem who cannot get it fixed for months. And this is in the United States, you know, where there's a lot of money. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that making wheelchairs is a solution, but it's a way to draw people in, to draw interest into this area. And I think that's important, because if we look at the bicycle world, to me, the bicycle world does everything right and the wheelchair world does everything wrong. That's a broad statement, but in general, if wheelchairs were treated like bicycles, we wouldn't be having nearly any of these problems, because anywhere in the world you go, you can get a bicycle. You can get your bicycle fixed. And if you want an expensive $10,000, $20,000 carbon fiber bicycle, you can get it. But you can also get an introductory bicycle for $100 that functions really well, and you can get it fixed. You can't do that with wheelchairs. Wheelchairs are treated completely different. In addition, there is such a stigma, a disability stigma that wraps around wheelchairs, that lots of people don't want to make them, they don't want to touch them, and they don't want to repair them, because they think it's something that they can't touch. So part of my whole make a wheelchair thing is so that people don't think it's so special. It's just another mobility device. And if you think about bicycles, people are making all sorts of weird bicycles all the time, and it's fun. And they're like, hey, look at my bicycle. It's 10 feet tall. Look at my bicycle. I can do this with it. I can do that with it. People don't do that with wheelchairs because of the stigma that's associated with it. So I think it's important for us to also, you know, get rid of that stigma as best we can, and get people to think of wheelchairs as what they are: personal mobility devices that don't necessarily need to have a huge stigma with them. So that's kind of my presentation in a nutshell. Kind of open the floor to discussions and about what I'm trying to get across. I'd like to hear some opinions, because like I said, I'm just a guy, and this is just my opinion as a wheelchair user. And you guys really represent large, you know, bigger organizations. And I'm happy that you guys are really interested in this area.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Erik, for your presentation.
I hope, Erik, can you hear me? This is Don.
I can,
yes, Don, we can.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think what you're doing is brilliant. You know, there are standards and wheelchair use that we all follow, ISO standards for wheelchairs for developed countries. And I know I've first had the sad fact that many of us have, that you take a wheelchair that's approved for developed countries and it may last a few months in the developing country. And it's a place to start, of course, for a standard, but that's why we've gone to a lot of trouble to build a test track that will expose a wheelchair to what we feel is a lot more appropriate for the developing countries' terrain, and make it, 5 times stronger. And we have our own particular need for this, but I think your attitude about generalizing the concept of a wheelchair and making it more easily repairable in the developing world, because that's our biggest problem. When they break, our wheelchairs break, and we give our distribution partners spare parts, but there's a huge chasm between the person who needs a spare part and the mountains of who knows where, and then the distribution partner down in the capital. It could take months and it could take years for the parts to get up to the person. What you're saying is it's a great perception of the problem. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I actually have a guy he's got spinal cord injury in Pakistan who's been making some wooden wheelchairs, and he's been repairing them, and he literally lives on a mountaintop. I mean, a completely inaccessible mountaintop. And he's been able to make some chairs. And again, and now he wants to create a little business, doing this. And this is why I say it's a gateway. The wooden wheelchairs are a gateway. Again, the lack, he has to find casters, right? Like, can you find casters that are available, industrial casters? He's making the wheels out of bicycle wheels, and bending the rim and all of this stuff himself. But ultimately, I think when we talk about this, we recognize the lack of resource, and the question is, all right, we've all heard of AI, right? And what do I hear about AI is about all the money that goes into AI, right? And why is everybody investing in AI? Because they think it's going to do some amazing stuff, right? So billions of dollars goes into AI because people think it's worth it and it's going to produce something. Why doesn't money go into wheelchairs? Because ultimately society thinks it doesn't really matter. And that is the root. It's like, we don't really expect people in wheelchairs to do much anyway. So how much should we really put into it? Does it really matter? And I think that unless we get people to recognize that this fact, that there's a tremendous underinvestment in this area, the system is not going to change. We'll always be having this conversation, like, no money, not enough money, not enough resources, low level stuff. And the money goes towards where people think it's worth it. We have to make society recognize it is worth it to provide, people with adequate functional wheelchairs. Because if you put me in a hospital wheelchair, I'm not doing any of that stuff that you saw me do. You will drop my performance, down to like 20% of what I can do right now, or maybe less. And then you're like, well, Erik, you can't really do anything anyway, so who cares? That's what's happened, in my opinion.
Yeah, Erik, I just want to agree with you. And I think you're talking about functional wheelchairs is actually the key, because for each person, they have a different functional need. And the wheelchair is not about the bearing in the caster. I think it's become such an engineering focused or corporate selling focused item that the user inside that it needs to function because of the way it's designed has been lost in many respects. And I think it's a really exciting possibility to explore working from the user's function out instead of from the ground up, which has sort of been historically the way wheelchairs have been designed and developed. I also love the idea of local development, starting with wood, moving to metal, moving to something bigger. And how do you grow that in a country where and make sure that there's not just one type of device being made, but each user's level of function can be addressed by a different type of solution.
Right. And if you saw that in my little, montage there, there is different wheelchairs there. I use a different wheelchair on rough terrain. I'm going to use a different wheelchair when I go on the beach. I'm going to use a different wheelchair to climb stairs, or, like all of that stuff. They're going to be different because the thing is, able-bodied people put on a different pair of shoes to do different things. And this idea that there's one perfect wheelchair out there is wrong, because there is no perfect wheelchair, because it depends. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you're doing different things. And also there's this thing, and that, I'll talk about high resource countries where we talk about, okay, oh, my wheelchair is dialed in. It's perfectly dialed in. And I'm like, dialed in for what? Because it depends what you're doing. The geometry of your chair and how you use it depends on what your particular purpose is. So what we've seen in high resource countries is really, really expensive wheelchairs, $10,000 wheelchairs. I'm actually sitting in a $10,000 carbon fiber Panthera right now that I won as a photo. I won it, so I wouldn't have paid for it. So I don't take this thing outside because I'm going to break it. I'll know I break it because you saw the stuff that I'm doing. I'll break it. And that'll be the end of my $10,000 chair. So I keep it inside the house, and this is the thing. This chair, I can't change anything about it. I gave them a CAD of my other chair and they made it a little bit differently. I can't change my axle position, nothing. But people are like, oh, wow, carbon fiber, isn't that fantastic? And I'm like, no, actually, carbon fiber is not fantastic. But from an engineering so this is a whole issue with engineers and engineering, that they are not wheelchair users. Now, if you build a bicycle, you talk to bicycle experts, and that's how you build a bicycle. You don't talk to arbitrary people who can ride a bicycle. You talk to expert people with bicycles who actually can do stuff with a bicycle. In the wheelchair world, people are like, I'm just going to interview these 5 wheelchair users and whatever they say goes. That doesn't make any sense. But that gets back to the low standards of performance that I was talking about earlier.
Thank you, Erik. I
Now,
saw that Arne had a comment before, but I don't know if you're still interested on that, Arne.
Yeah, it was just a reflection on one of your statements, Erik, that there's the lack of standards, yes, but is it merely like sort of a list of requirements that you want to see that come with a wheelchair, like particular things that you should be able to do with wheelchairs or to perform with wheelchairs? Or there are standards, like there's, like John mentioned, like Don mentioned as well, there's also a usability standard, which is then more generic for medical devices, a standard that focuses not only on safety but also on user outcomes. But is it a standard you're seeking for, or is it more, let's say, a package of requirements?
So when I say, standards is more, it's more like expectations and recognizing that and having an understanding. Well, first of all, to me, the output of a wheelchair is a wheelchair system, right? And the system is made up of the person, the device, and the environment, and the interaction between all three, right? So they all matter. And so what is the output of that system? I'm saying that I think in general, society has a relatively low standard or expectation for the output of that system. And I'm saying the output of that system can be raised, because this is the whole purpose of the Paralympics, right? Like, hey, look at these guys, they can do all this awesome stuff. So that's the purpose. Now, we don't really have a parallel in the wheelchair world. And what has happened, what I've seen is since in the last couple decades, particularly in the United States, is that there's so much more emphasis on, okay, make your life easier with power assist, with $2,000 wheels and so forth, without understanding that the user drives most of that. So it's not, so people start to think that it's high technology drives better output. And I'm trying to say, no, it's a combination of all three. But what's really missing is user training and user ability. But wheelchair users, another example, I love the bicycle world. Imagine you go to buy a bicycle, right? You go to a bicycle store. The people who sell you the bike don't ride bicycles. The people who made the bikes don't ride bicycles. Okay. You buy your bicycle, you go to learn how to use it from a coach who doesn't know how to ride a bicycle. This is literally the wheelchair world. Users have such small input in it. And until you get wheelchair users who can do more high level things in a chair, for instance, you're not going to know the dynamics of a wheelchair on a 20% slope unless you've been on a wheelchair on a 20% slope, right? You just don't know how it performs. And that's what I'm trying to get across. All of this is completely understood in the bicycle world or the skateboard world or any mobility world except for wheelchairs, because wheelchairs again are seen as something completely different. If we just treat wheelchairs like we treat able-bodied products, things would be completely different.
Thank you, Erik. And I want to say that we do hear you as part of like this group. Like we are, I think all of us are passionate about improving many of the aspects that you have mentioned. And that's why discussing all of this really matters, right? Because we want to hear from wheelchair users. We also want to hear from other experts that may be designers, that may be therapists. And I think just working on a team and understanding each other is what really is going to make it better. So like your perspective, of course, is very valuable. And I think that some of the things that you showed us today on the video are also very interesting ways to approach to the wheelchair, right? Because many of those things are like real life scenarios where many wheelchair users are. And I hope that many people in the group as well find a way that we can connect on many other gaps that we find in the industry. Because yes, you're right, many wheelchair users are not always approached. But I also know that there's other experts that are approaching it from the health side, right? Like making sure that maybe there's some products that are not causing any injuries at the skin level. So there's many areas of input. And I think that maybe we just need to start talking more and finding that middle ground. So I want to really thank you for your presentation. I also want to ask you about something a little bit on a separate note, because I noticed that you were adding a new Facebook group for assistive technology on low and middle income countries. And I wanted you to invite the members of the group to know a little bit more about what you are doing there, because I thought it was great.
So I just recently started using LinkedIn, and you know, one of the things I wanted to do is I created this group, and it's really just a networking tool. It's hopefully for it's an opportunity for people who are interested, like we're interested in wheelchairs. You know, I expanded to assistive technology, but really it's just a group for people who are interested in assistive technology and LMICs, you know, to be in that group and hopefully network with each other. And again, I think it's anything that you can do to get people more interested in this area is important, because the lack of interest in this area, I think, is a huge detriment to all of us. And you know, we're all interested, but how do we get the other people interested? And that's the thing. You know, that is a hard thing to do. So
yeah, I agree. And I think that with social media now, everything is blowing. So I think you got one big step forward with creating a network there. So congrats on that as well. Alex.
Thanks, Erik. I think it's truly remarkable what you're doing, and you're really shifting our thinking around what we traditionally have been taught. And so I think the diversity of your thought to this, both to this community and to the wider sector, has been invaluable. I just wanted to check. So my understanding is your designs are open source and anyone can download them or go and create their own. Has anyone contacted you, and do you know of people using them and any feedback from them?
So yeah, so definitely, like I said, this guy in Pakistan, he's making chairs, and I have recently got some more interest in from people. I think again, there are a lot of barriers to surmount. In low resource countries, it's hard for people to get the basic components, which are casters and wheels and so forth. And so that's a barrier. I'm trying to, right now, I'm looking at creating an open source wheelchair parts store and sourcing stuff from China and literally selling it basically at cost, but also showing people what it costs so that they can understand what's involved. In high resource countries, it's more of a there is a YouTube video. It's called How to Start a Movement. I suggest everybody Google it. It's pretty awesome. All right, but I'm going to describe it real quick. How to start a movement. So there's a video. There's these people. They're at a concert, and there's one dude, and he's dancing like crazy, and he's just doing his thing, and nobody else is dancing. And then one other guy joins him, and there's two of them. And once those two get together, other people are like, oh, I'm going to join them too. And it starts the movement. And the point was, the person who was key to this movement was not the first one, it was the second one. The second one drew the other people in. Right now, I'm just that weird dude doing stuff by myself. I need my second person. And that's kind of where I'm at, because people are right now like, oh, that's just Erik doing that stuff that Erik does, And I'm trying to say, guys, it's not, you can do this too. I need my second person dancing with me. And then people are like, oh, this is actually a thing. So that's kind of where I am now. I feel like a lot of people who could make chairs are afraid to do so. They really are. They're afraid. And so I'm doing everything, again, they're like the people who are afraid to start dancing, like, oh, everyone's going to look at me because I got a wooden chair, that they're going to think that I'm poor, or they're going to think whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but so breaking that barrier, to me, breaking that barrier in getting early adopters in high resource countries will change the perception and hopefully be helpful in low resource countries, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I'm going about it. And I'm just like one dude who's trying to do it. Like, I'm not like an organization,
Thank you, Erik. But with one person, change can happen. So that's where it all starts.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. I want to thank you for being with us today. Just want to remind you that our next meeting is going to be on December 11th. And again, I want to thank Alex, Arne, for your updates, and Erik for your presentation and everything that you have shared with us today. And looking forward to seeing you around the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Have a good rest
Thank
of
you
your
for the
week.
day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so
Don't give
much.
up, Erik. Don't
Bye.
give up, Erik. Don't give up.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.